whereas imports have increased because of the demand for energy, because of the rise in the prices of crude, because of the rise in prices of gold. So the imports went down. So there is one more factor which has affected is what I would call it as judicial activism. You would recall that in India, PIL has suddenly become a fashion. PILs can open the door for any individual to gain prominence and can cause the downfall of any. The biggest investor also can be bought with lease by a simple PIL fine. What happened in iron ore? Iron ore, if you remember, we are one of the largest, we have the largest reserves of iron ore. Suddenly, one day, the Supreme Court banned the export of iron ore from the states of Goa and Karnataka. There was some bungling, and the entire activity was put to a halt. Now, I know for a fact that in Goa alone, it's such a small state, there are more than 2,500 transporters who are very middle class, whose income is only because they have a tipper or a lorry, which they carry iron ore from the mines to the barge. Now those 2,500 families are badly affected. I mean, they are in the dumps now. They will have to be below the poverty line because the total activity has ceased. On the other hand, what we find is we are importing iron ore now. So for iron ore which we were exporting and getting about 15 or 18 billion dollars in a year, suddenly you find that the inflow has stopped, and in fact, industry starved of iron ore, they started importing. Same thing happened with coal. Coal also we are now the largest in the world. But again, coal, in the past we were only importing a very superior grade of coal. But now, when the entire process of blocks of auction of coal blocks have been put into question, the activity has ceased. So the industries are forced to import coal. So there also we are taking a hit of about 10 or 11 billion dollars. Now, what has happened to 2G? 2G has been scrapped by the government because of the judicial activism, and 3G is in cold storage. There would have been so much of investment coming into India. There have been big deals. I think what is that telecom company? Etisalat lost out. Even your Battleco backed out. So many investors have been put off by this sort of interference in policy. So what is the solution for this? I think there is no solution. Actually, the parliament should sit together and find a way and pass laws that certain things are beyond the scope of the courts. The wrongdoers, yes, let the courts identify the wrongdoers, let them subject them to punishment, but you can't tar the entire spectrum with the same brush. Just because there has been some bungling in iron ore mining, or because there has been a bungling in the auction of the coal blocks, you cannot stop the entire process. So these things have to be delineated, they have to be identified. The courts have to be advised that this is where where you are not supposed to do. All this may take a lot of effort and time on the part of the parliament and a lot of willpower. So that again brings back to the question: does the Indian polity have the willpower? In the present situation with the coalition politics, it's going to be different. Now let us look at what we are exporting and what we are importing. This is just a figure cut off from the Government of India side. Now what here I find is, we can do much better in pharma, we can do much better in cereals, we can do much better in cotton and textiles, and we can do better in leather products also. About iron and coal, I have already told you that we have been turned from exporters, we have turned into importers now. So in 2012-13, we had a total export of 300 billion, and if you look at the import chart, we are importing $490 billion, of which again crude is a major share. Now crude oil, if you see, we are importing 181, but we are also exporting, after refinement, we are exporting about 62 billion. So still there is a net import of 120 billion. Now, what can be done? We have to reduce here. How do we reduce? We have to look for alternatives. So what alternatives? So we have to look for maybe alternative sources of energy. We have to look for nuclear energy. We have to look for shale oil. We have to look for wind energy, maybe solar energy. So these alternatives, the government with a strong will can actually support and see that these ideas get more and more progress. Gold, there's absolutely no way. I think our requirement of gold for right from every ceremony to every whatever happens in the family, and then the way of looking at gold as an investment is very strongly entrenched. So this greed for gold is going to continue unless the entire population of India suddenly get a national bill like the Japanese have it. So suppose we have a national bill, a national ethos, and we all decide, okay, we are not going to invest in gold. We will better invest in the stock market, where the development takes place. So unless that happens, I find it's going to be very difficult. Now, the government has also taken various steps. The Reserve Bank has taken various steps. I will talk about a few steps taken by the government and the Reserve Bank of India, which led to the, in conjunction with the statements of Verma about not tapering of the quantitative easing, and in conjunction with other steps. At the same time, the government also announced some policy statements. They opened a window for dollar requirements of the oil companies. So simply put, what it means is, instead of the oil companies going to the banks or to the market for getting dollars, they would oppose the Reserve Bank of India. The Reserve Bank of India would give them dollars in exchange for rupees, and after a period of say 3 years or so, the oil companies were supposed to give back the dollars. So at least that problem is sorted for the time being. So they don't hit the market so bad. The government of India also increased the import duty on gold. I think from 4% it went up to 5, and then 5 to 10, and from 10 to 15. And this has brought about a perceptible change in the last 2 months. In the last 2 months, we find that the import of gold has reduced considerably. They have taken various measures to curb rupee liquidity. That is their policy statements on about 2 months back they had increased the MSF, they had increased the repo rate. Then they like yesterday's policy statement, he has again increased the repo rate, even though he has decreased the MSF rate. We'll come to that later on. But these sort of measures had also helped the rupee strengthen in the last 2 weeks. Then the government has announced a lot of stocks for exporters. The export promotion capital goods scheme has been extended. It has been extended across the board to all the sectors. There is a extension of the interest subvention which the government pays to the exporters. That has been expanded. The basket has been expanded now to 134 sectors. Then they also announced that they will reduce government expenditure. Now this is another point which they have to act, not just to state the policy. If they start acting on that, better for it, because the fiscal deficit will reduce and will send a good message to the people at large. Then they are exploring various opportunities for trading in rupee. Now see, rupee is not a world currency. Now why do we always say dollar now? Because every trade in India, every import, every export is invoiced in dollar. So how do we get out of this, how do we cut this umbilical cord? It is possible. Now, if we start talking with Iraq has got a lot of oil in it. If we start talking with Iraq, and they have great need for Indian, investments. So if we start talking with Iraq, that we will take their oil, pay them in rupees, and for our investments, they will pay us back in rupees. That will be a very nice arrangement. I think about 30% of our energy, crude oil requirements can be met by Iraq alone. In fact, Iran was also a very good substitute. We were actually doing the because of the US sanctions, that has considerably reduced. It has come down to a trickle now. In the last 6 months, we have hardly had any dealing with Iran for import of oil, for import of crude. Then the RBI also announced a swap window for banks. They first freed the interest rates on NRE accounts and FCNR deposits. They freed the interest rates. They removed the cap, and for all deposits of more than 3 years, the banks are free to fix their own rates. So many banks have increased the rates. State Bank has also increased the rates, but not to that extent. But those FCNR deposits that the banks will collect, now RBI has opened a window for them that they will swap them for rupees at a cost, and that cost is debatable now. The percentage cost which they have said about 3.5%. So at that cost, they will be getting rupee funds, which they will be able to invest domestically and get higher returns on that. So that swap window has also been opened. We don't have figures now as to how many banks have taken advantage of this window opened by the Reserve Bank of India. So friends, what more can be done by the Government of India or by RBI? What more can be done? What are the expectations of the people? What do bankers expect? What do bankers always expect? The CRR should be cut, more liquidity should be injected and all. It doesn't happen that way always. Now, as I said, the government has to look for alternate sources of energy, where shale oil, nuclear, wind and solar energy can be a solution for all our needs. I also strongly feel that investors in the domestic equity market should be rewarded. There should be some benefits, tax benefits for investors in the stock market. Now the dependence of the stock market on FI is very high, and that leads to frequent shocks and every time something happens and they withdraw, the rupee is going to nosedive. So to ensure ourselves against such shocks, the market has to deepen. We need to get more and more domestic Indians, NRIs to invest in the market. NRIs can also invest in the equity market now. So for that, the government has to offer some tax benefits. The government can also come out with a sovereign bond. If you remember, last time the crisis was there in 1998 and 2000, the task was entrusted to State Bank of India for issuing a bond, and we had come out with a Reserve India bond and then the India Millennium Deposit Bond. Now both these bonds which were issued by State Bank of India came at a very huge cost to the market. For one, the exchange risk was not fully taken by the government. It was shared with State Bank of India to the extent of 50%. So there was a huge outgo for State Bank of India when the bonds were redeemed. So this time, State Bank of India is quite reluctant to accept the government's plea to go in for a bond or something. And I think this has been made known. That's why there has been no announcement about any bond being issued. But why should the government of India not issue a sovereign bond? The country rating is bad, I agree. But then there will be several investors, Indians itself, they form such a large diaspora. So I think they will go for the sovereign bond if the government of India comes out with one. Another factor which I feel is very important is bank deposits are, there is no encouragement given by the Reserve Bank of India or Government of India to bank deposits. In fact, it's the other way around. There is TDS, there are so many factors. Why does domestic saving not be encouraged? Why do you tax people who want to save? Once you have schemes where there is no TDS on bank deposits, banks are very important vehicles in the growth of the economy. So once you do away with this, I think there will be a huge increase of funds available to the banks, which can be converted into lesser prices for the loans given by us. So this is also very important. Then, as I told you, the rupee trade. Rupee trade with Iran. Now let us look at our expenditure on defense. Now, our expenditure on defense, I could not get the figures from the government side, but I believe it's quite substantial. The imports on account of defense is very high. Now, let us look at the country. Now, if we start from Pakistan and go around Pakistan, then China, then Nepal, then you come down to Bangladesh, Burma, Sri Lanka, then just outside this, Pakistan, Burma. So all these adjoining countries, we do not have good relations with even a single country. Even Burma is, antagonist. Even Nepal is not for India. Even Sri Lanka is not with India. So what does this mean actually? It means we are, facing a constant threat all around us. Even if we discount China, if we don't take China right now, the immediate neighbors who are there, we don't have good relations with a single country. Why don't we improve relations with these countries? This bloc that I talk of, and if you include Afghanistan and Iran and Iraq, I think they'll account for almost 200 crores of population, which is a huge bloc. Why should we look at the West? Why should we look at Europe? Why should we look at US? If out of 600 crore people in the world, if 200 crore people are there between one block, and if we can trade with them in rupees, I think it's a great thing. Now Iraq is in a very bad state. We missed the Africa story totally. When Africa was opened up and when investments were being done in Africa, India totally missed the bus. Right from 2000 to 2012, we have totally ignored Africa. Now that story is closed for us. If you look at Africa today, the amount of investment done by China is very, very great. And if you see Indian investment, it's very low. So now, having missed the Africa story, why should we not look at this block that I talked about? This is still open. Iraq is in a mess, Afghanistan is in a mess. They need people, they need infrastructure, they need investments, they need technicians, they need chartered accountants, they need doctors. So why do we not fill the gap? This is for the government of India to try and understand and probably make efforts for that. Once we do that, our energy needs will be met in rupee terms. We don't have to deal in dollars at all. So that means we will not be subject to such shocks. Then what more can be done? Population. I think after emergency, nobody in India has ever talked about population control. They have always talked about population being the strength of the country. Yes, up to a certain point, up to a certain period, the population was a strength, say up to 2000. Now, but with the massive rise, with the urbanization of India, every city has become unlivable. Why does the government of India not talk about controlling population now? There are some advertisements and things like that, but something like it was done in emergency, something like that. Don't give food subsidy bill, don't give to families having more than 2 kids. Start something like that. I'm just out of the box thinking I'm doing. But something of this sort has to be done so that our population remains stable and does not further increase. We are so near to China now. I think it's just a matter of some 7 or 8 crores that we are behind China now. Now, let us look at the GDP of India over the years. This is in rupee terms. Now, this graph tells the whole story. The massive improvement from in the decade 1991 to 2001. The GDP has gone up some 200 times in a period of about 10 years. So that was the time when liberalization had set in, when the Narasimha Rao government started with reforms, and we were all there to see how India was transformed. Now this is plateauing because of Indian economy is now no longer it cannot be seen in isolation. It is a global economy now. Even however much we wish, global economy is an axiom which cannot be taken away from us. We have to think and work with the world at large. So the growth in GDP has been very impressive, but still the plateauing now doesn't portend well for us. We should have continued the growth story for maybe another 3-4 years at least. We are probably the 10th largest economy as of now, and if we had continued with the double digit that was there in all these years, in the last 2 years, it would have been so wonderful. But now we are reduced to single digit, and we are reduced to less than 5%. The latest forecast is for less than 5%. So that is certainly not good news. Friends, we have got what other things in the economy. Now it's too complex. It's too complex for one person like me to expound on it here, and especially in front of an audience which is so well versed and who knows facts of the matter so well. Now we have all heard of dilemmas. No, we are faced with dilemmas every now and then in our real life also. One of the best statements of a dilemma, of how a dilemma is created, was told to me by a friend of mine. He said, you ask anybody, any married male, you ask him, have you stopped beating your wife? So that will be an immediate dilemma for that person. He can't say yes, he can't say no. So either way he's in a fix now. So that sort of dilemmas we have faced in our individual lives, the country has faced, and so many things are happening here. But now there is a new term in economics known as a trilemma. Three captain flows. They may be able to have two of them at the same time, but not all three. Now friends, for NRS, what is it for NRS? Now this question has been, as a banker, I have been frequently been asked. One is, as I told you, the exchange rate for the day. Should I wait or should I not wait? And the other is, what are the opportunities? So, see, the opportunities have not changed. The opportunities remain the same. The banks in India have not done nothing great to offer some new opportunities to NRIs. I am sure no bank in India is going to come out with a bond like State Bank of India did in 98 and 2000. That is not on the annual trend. So what are the initiatives? So what are the initiatives? What are the available resources for investment opportunities for NRIs? The first one is, now since the NRI rates have been freed, the FCNR rates have been freed, so you can invest in FCNR deposits and in NRI deposits, where the rate of interest is now reasonably good. Safety of capital is assured, but the biggest dampener is inflation. So with inflation, your returns will be muted to that extent. Another good thing that actually is an opportunity for all NRIs is to invest in commercial real estate. Now there are a host of more than 50 B-class cities in India where the rates are still stable for real estate, where the scope for capital appreciation is very high, and the demand is also growing for commercial real estate. So I think if you have excess money, if you have money with you there for you to spare, you should invest in real estate in one of the middle sized cities in India. Then again, if you have a long-term perspective, you can invest in the stock market. One investment I would like to suggest, especially after the land acquisition bill has been passed, is to invest in agricultural land. So if you plan properly, if you know about the opportunities there in your area of living, if you know about any plans that are coming up for any major project, buy land there. The land acquisition bill, it is fantastic. It says that you will be getting 4 times the market value. So there is a great opportunity for all of us there if we can identify a proper property. Friends, what are the positives that we can take away now? For the short term, the quantitative easing has been put off, so that's good news. For the short term, the Syria crisis has blown over, good news. But again, these are all very short term. Again, the short term good news is that the index of Indian exports have gone up. For the last 2 months, it has shown a positive growth. The exports, especially for manufacturing, have gone up in the last 2 months. We have the general elections coming in, staring us in our eyes, and with the general elections, we hope that we get a stable and strong government which will be able to carry out its plans. And the best news, of course, has been the good monsoon. Fantastic monsoon, 100% in most parts of India except for the northeast. So that means maybe we'll cross 300 million tons of food grains. So on this note, I would like to thank the BCCI for having invited me here. Thank you all friends very much, and have a nice day.